Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of economics with a focus on elasticity. Our presentation is titled Elasticity in Economics, and we'll explore how buyers and sellers respond when prices, income levels, or the prices of related goods change. This concept is essential for understanding market behavior and making informed decisions in business and policy. Let's get started. Here we have three key objectives for this module. First, we'll focus on the price elasticity of demand, where we'll learn to define and calculate how the quantity demanded reacts when prices change. This helps us understand consumer behavior. Next, we'll explore income and cross-elasticity, which looks at how demand shifts not only with changes in income, but also when the prices of related goods fluctuate. Finally, we'll cover the elasticity of supply, which involves defining and calculating how the quantity supplied responds to price changes. Together, these concepts provide a comprehensive framework for analyzing how markets adjust to various economic factors. Here, we're looking at what elasticity really means in economic terms. Elasticity measures how much the quantity demanded or supplied shifts when there's a change in price, income, or even the prices of other related goods. If the quantity moves a lot in response to these changes, we call that elastic behavior. On the other hand, if the quantity barely changes despite price fluctuations, that's inelastic behavior. For example, the price signs on these apricots illustrate how customers might react differently to price changes, helping us understand elasticity in a real-world context. Let's take a closer look at what price elasticity of demand actually means. Essentially, it measures how much the quantity demanded of a product changes when its price changes. To put it simply, it tells us how sensitive consumers are to price fluctuations. The calculation is straightforward. You take the percentage change in the quantity demanded and divide it by the percentage change in price. This ratio helps businesses understand whether a price increase or decrease will significantly affect how much customers buy, which is crucial for making informed pricing decisions. Here we walk through a worked example to calculate the price elasticity of demand. First, you calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded and the percentage change in price. Once you have those values, you substitute them into the elasticity formula. The result is a coefficient that tells you how responsive demand is to price changes. If the coefficient is greater than 1, demand is elastic, meaning consumers are quite sensitive to price changes. If it's less than 1, demand is inelastic, showing that consumers are less responsive. And if it equals 1, demand is unit elastic, indicating proportional sensitivity. This process helps us better understand consumer behavior and market dynamics. Here we're looking at how price elasticity of demand varies across different categories. The horizontal bar chart breaks down elasticity into 5 key types. First, perfectly inelastic demand has an elasticity of 0, meaning quantity demanded doesn't change no matter the price. Then, inelastic demand with elasticity less than 1 shows that quantity demanded changes, but less proportionally to price changes. In this case, a value of 0.5. Next, unit elastic demand has an elasticity of exactly 1, indicating a proportional response between price and quantity demanded. Moving on, elastic demand, where elasticity is greater than 1, suggests that quantity demanded is quite sensitive to price changes. Here, we see a value of 2. Finally, perfectly elastic demand theoretically approaches infinity, meaning even a tiny price change causes dramatic shifts in demand. Understanding these distinctions helps us predict consumer reactions and make informed pricing decisions. Now, let's look at the main factors that influence the price elasticity of demand. First, the availability of substitutes plays a crucial role. When there are close substitutes for a product, consumers can easily switch if the price changes, making demand more elastic. Next, we have necessity versus luxury goods. Necessities tend to have inelastic demand because people need them regardless of price, while luxuries are more elastic since they are more sensitive to price changes. Another factor is consumer income share. Products that consume a larger portion of a person's income usually have more elastic demand because price changes impact their budget more significantly. Over time, demand elasticity can increase as consumers discover alternatives or change their behavior in response to price changes, which is why the time period is important. Finally, how broadly or narrowly a product is defined also matters. Narrowly defined products tend to have more elastic demand because it's easier for consumers to find substitutes within that category. Together, these factors shape how sensitive demand is to price changes in different markets. Income elasticity of demand tells us how the quantity demanded of a product changes when there is a change in consumer income. Essentially, it measures how sensitive demand is to income fluctuations. To calculate this, we use a simple formula: the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in income. This ratio helps us understand the relationship quantitatively. Now, based on this coefficient, we can classify goods into three categories. Normal goods have positive income elasticity, meaning demand increases as income rises. Inferior goods have a negative elasticity, so demand decreases when income goes up. Lastly, luxury goods have an elasticity greater than 1, showing that demand increases more than proportionally with income. This concept is crucial for businesses and economists to predict consumer behavior under different economic conditions. On the left, the image illustrates shoppers considering various goods, highlighting the real-world context of these concepts. Here we're looking at the key factors that influence the income elasticity of demand, starting with basic necessities. These are items people need regardless of income changes, so their demand remains relatively stable and shows low income elasticity. Moving on to discretionary goods, which are non-essential and luxury items, we see that their demand is much more sensitive to income shifts. When people's income rises, they tend to spend more on these items, and vice versa. Finally, premium brands and leisure services experience even greater fluctuations in demand based on income. These higher-end products are where consumers exercise the most flexibility in their spending habits, making them highly responsive to changes in income levels. The image here of the mall with shoppers and displays helps illustrate this range from essential to luxury goods in a real-world context. Let's talk about cross-elasticity of demand, which helps us understand how the price change of one product affects the demand for another. First, we have substitute goods. These are products where a price increase in one leads to higher demand for the other, showing a positive cross-elasticity. Think of it like if the price of coffee goes up, people might buy more tea instead. On the other hand, complementary goods have a negative cross-elasticity coefficient. This means if the price of one product rises, the demand for its complement falls. For example, if the price of coffee increases, the demand for sugar, which complements coffee, may decrease. The icons here help visualize these relationships. The fork represents substitutes, suggesting alternatives, while the linked chain symbolizes complementary goods, highlighting their connection. Understanding these concepts is crucial for pricing strategies and market analysis. Here we're looking at the key factors that influence cross-elasticity of demand. First, when products are very similar and consumers don't have strong brand loyalty, the cross-elasticity tends to be higher. This means it's easier for customers to switch between products because they see them as substitutes. On the other hand, the strength of how products complement each other and the number of available alternatives also plays a big role. When there are many options in the market and the complementary relationship is strong, it influences how sensitive demand is to changes in the price of related goods. This grocery store display of fruits, especially apples, illustrates how customers might react differently, depending on the variety and positioning of products. Understanding these factors helps businesses anticipate consumer behavior and plan pricing strategies effectively. Here we're focusing on the elasticity of supply, which essentially tells us how much the quantity supplied responds when there's a change in price. If companies can quickly increase their production, supply is considered more elastic. On the other hand, if they're constrained by limited capacity, time, or scarce resources, supply tends to be less elastic. Several factors affect this responsiveness, including whether firms have spare capacity, the time period available to adjust, the levels of inventory they hold, and how flexible their production processes are. Understanding these determinants helps explain why some markets react faster to price changes than others. Here we're comparing 4 important types of elasticities in economics, each measuring responsiveness, but in different contexts. First up is price elasticity of demand, which looks at how much the quantity demanded changes when the price changes. Since demand usually falls as price rises, its sign is typically negative, and the size of this number tells us how sensitive consumers are to price changes. Next, we have income elasticity of demand. This measures how demand shifts when consumers' incomes change. A positive sign indicates a normal good, meaning demand goes up as income increases. A negative sign shows an inferior good, where demand decreases as income grows. Then there's cross-elasticity of demand. This one measures how the quantity demanded of one good responds to price changes of another. If the sign is positive, the goods are substitutes. If negative, they're complements, like coffee and cream. Finally, elasticity of supply measures how much the quantity supplied reacts to price changes. Unlike demand, this elasticity is always positive, since higher prices generally encourage producers to supply more. The larger the number, the more responsive the supply is to price variations. Understanding these 4 elasticities helps us grasp consumer behavior and market dynamics from various angles, whether it's pricing strategies, income effects, or product relationships. Understanding why elasticity matters is crucial for making informed business decisions. First, when we talk about pricing strategy, elasticity shows us how changes in price will impact demand. This insight helps businesses set prices that attract customers without losing revenue. Next, elasticity also informs us about revenue effects, specifically, whether increasing prices will actually boost total revenue or cause it to drop. This can be a game changer for pricing decisions. Finally, considering tax and subsidy impact, elasticity predicts how these government measures will alter consumption and economic behavior, enabling more accurate forecasting and planning. Together, these points highlight how mastering elasticity can drive smarter, more effective economic and pricing strategies. As we wrap up, let's review the key concepts we've covered. First, price elasticity of demand measures how much the quantity demanded changes when the price changes, using a precise formula. Next, income elasticity of demand shows how consumers adjust their buying habits when their income changes, influencing the demand for both normal and inferior goods. Then, the cross-elasticity of demand looks at how the demand for one good responds to price changes in a related good. Moving on, elasticity of supply captures how producers react to price changes, affecting the quantity they supply. Finally, understanding these elasticities is crucial because they shape market dynamics and help businesses and policymakers make informed decisions about economic outcomes. This summary ties together the fundamental insights that drive market behavior: